Now that we've gone over the different data types, for example strings and numbers, let's look into operators. So the basic operators you can think of as plus or minus, these kind of things. So let's go over the real basics first, just so we get a bit of confidence with it. So we can use the plus to add two numbers together. So for example 19 plus 3. We can also use the plus to add two strings together. I plus John. So other things we can use are minus. That's when we want to subtract one number from another. So we want to take 98 from 100. Sorry, 100 from 98. That's minus 2. We can divide numbers. So 10 divided by 5 is going to be 2. And when we do divisions, it's really important to notice in Python that they're floats. So they're float numbers, which means they're decimals. Whereas if we are to convert it to an integer, like I was showing you in the previous lecture, that will be an integer. Another thing we can do is multiply. So for example, 10 multiplied by 9, we just use the asterisk sign for multiplications. Then we can do to the power of. So that would be 10 times 10, 9 times. So if we make it a bit simpler, this would be 100. When we do it 3, it would be 10 times 10 times 10, which is 1000, etc. The final one we're going to use, and just because this is quite useful when we're doing machine learning, is, let's say for example, 10, and this is called modulus. That's what we call it. We use the percentage sign, it's called modulus. And it's basically, when you divide 10 by 3, what's the remainder that you get? And it should be 1, because it goes 3, 6, 9, you have 1 left over. So those are the main operators to consider. They should be relatively straightforward, apart from the modulus at the end maybe, but 10 plus 6 is all kind of basic math stuff. The next thing we're going to look at are comparisons. So we could say things like 10 is more than 20, and that will return either a true or a false. And the proper name for it is called a Boolean, but you just need to think of it as true or false. So this will return false, because 10 isn't bigger than 20. But 10 is bigger than 5. So if we run this, that will be true. So the more than sign is the right caret, like this, and the less than sign, so 10 is less than 5, that will return false. 10 is less than 500 will return true. We can also have less than or equal to. So if we were to do 10 is less than or equal to 11, that will be true. If we were to do 10 is less than or equal to 9, that's false. But if we were to do 10 is less than or equal to 10, it will return true. And you can do the same thing for more than as well. So you can do more than or equal to. Next up, we just have equal to. So you would think maybe that you do 10 equals 10, but if you do that, when we have one equal sign, that's like you're trying to assign a variable. So we're trying to say the variable 10 is equal to 10, and that just doesn't make sense. So when you're doing comparisons, you have to use two equal signs to say 10 is equal to 10. If we change this to 9, of course that would be false because 10 isn't equal to 9. But we can do not equal to, and for that we do an exclamation mark and an equal sign. So 10 is not equal to 9, that will return true. Finally, we have two main logical operators, and or. This is where we want to say something like this. 10 is less than 20, and 30 is less than 50. Well, both of those are true. 10 is less than 20, and 30 is less than 50. We should change that to less than. So that will return true. But if either one of these is false, then it's not going to work. So I'm going to change this to 20. So 10 is less than 20, but 30 is not less than 20, so that's going to return false. And then finally, if we change this to an or, because one of those is true and the other one isn't, it's going to return true. So hopefully that will make sense. So the main operators are just things that we use for basic maths. Plus, minus, divide, multiply, power of, and then the modulus, which may be the more confusing one. It basically says how many remainders do we have after dividing this number by another number. Then we had the comparisons, which is exactly the same as in JavaScript. More than, less than, more than equal to and not equal to. And then finally we can combine these with ands and ors. And as you may remember from the JavaScript module, when we start talking about if-else statements and other stuff, you realize that ands and or are very, very useful things to have. So in JavaScript, and was two and signs, or was the two pipe signs, like this. But for Python, it just makes it a bit easier. You just write and or. So that's the operators and comparisons. Hope that's been useful, and I'll see you in the next lecture.